Hello students, today I am going to explain you the chapter The Mughal Empire, chapter 4 of your history textbook. Ruling a large territory as the Indian subcontinent involved such a diversity of people and culture was an extremely difficult task to accomplish in the Middle Ages. However, in contrast to the predecessors, the Mughals have created an empire and they have also shown the world how to expand their kingdom and to control the subcontinent till the 17th century. They imposed structures of administration and ideas of governance that outlasted their rule. It left a political legacy which the succeeding rulers of the subcontinent could not ignore. Who were the Mughals? The Mughals were the descendants of two great lineages of rulers, Genghis Khan, who was a Mongol ruler and ruled over parts of China, Central Asia, and Genghis Khan was from the mother side of the Mughals. From the father side, Mughals were the successors of Timur, ruler of Iran, Iraq, and modern-day Turkey. Mughals never liked to be called as Mughals or Mongols, as Genghis Khan's memory was associated with the massacre of innumerable people, military campaign of the Mughals. Babur was the first Mughal emperor. He succeeded the throne of Farghana in 1494 and he was only 12 years of age. He was forced to leave his ancestral throne due to the invasion of another Mongol group, the Uzbeks, seized Kabul in 1504 and in 1526 Babur defeated the Sultan of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi, at the Panipat and captured Agra and Delhi. Here you can see India on the eve of Babur's invasion. When Babur came, this whole region was ruled by Lodi dynasty and he conquered. He had a fight at Panipat and Ibrahim Lodi lost and Babur started to rule in India. The Mughal Empire, this pink area which you can see, that is the empire of Mughal rulers till 1605 and Mughal Empire till the 1707 was combined of this pink area and this blue area, and you can see only small part of Indian subcontinent were not ruled by the Mughal Empire. This is the external boundary. This dotted line is the external boundary of the Mughal Empire, and this is during the year of 1700. See the expansion of Mughal dynasty. 1565, only this much area. 1601, when Akbar was ruling. 1650, this much area was ruled by Mughal Empire. 1707, this is the area which was ruled by Aurangzeb. And this is 1772, only this much area was left out. Mughal tradition of succession. Mughal did not believe in the rule of primogeniture, which means the eldest son will inherit his father's estate. They believed in a custom of coparcenary inheritance, which means division of the inheritance amongst all the sons. Mughal relations with other ruler. Mughal rulers campaigned constantly against rulers who refused to accept their authority. They became powerful. Many rulers like the Rajputs joined them voluntarily. Many of the Rajputs married their daughter into Mughal families and received high position. Many resisted as well. For example, Sisodia Rajputs of Mewar, they refused to accept the Mughal authority. However, upon defeat, Rajputs were honorably treated by the Mughals, given their lands back as assignments. And these assignments were also called as Watan Jagir. This careful balance between defeating but not humiliating their opponent enabled the Mughals to extend their influence over many kings and chieftains. Definitely it was difficult for them to keep this balance or maintain this balance throughout the time. But yes, to a good extent they have successfully maintained the balance. Mansabdars and Jagirdars. Empire expanded to different regions. Mughals recruited different people from Turkish nobles, from Iranis, Indian Muslims were there, Afghans were there, Rajputs were there, Marathas were there, and other groups were also there. And some of these people joined the Mughal service as Mansabdars. The term Mansabdars refers to an individual who holds a manab, which means a position or rank. Grading system was used by Mughals in order to rate these Mansabdars. Rank and salary determined by numerical value. Higher the Jat, the more prestigious the noble's position would be in the court, and the noble will receive high salary. Mansabdar's military responsibilities require him to maintain specific number of sawar or cavalrymen. Cavalrymen were reviewed, registered, and their horses branded before the Mansabdar received the money to pay them as salary. Mansabdar's salary were revenue assignments called Jagirs. This is somewhat like Iktas. Unlike Muktis, Mansabdar did not administer their Jagirs. Mansabdar only had the right to the revenue of their assignments collected for them by their servants. They themselves served in another part of the country. During Akbar's reign, Jagirs were assessed so that their revenues were roughly same as the salary of the Mansabdar. However, things changed when Aurangzeb was ruling. During his reign, actual revenue collected was often less than the granted sum. The number of Mansabdars also increased, leading to a long wait before they received a Jagir. Jagirdars tried to get as much revenue as possible while they had a Jagir. Aurangzeb, unable to control these developments during the end of his reign, and peasantry or the farmers suffered a lot. Zabt and Zamindars. The main source of income for Mughal rulers was the tax on the produce of the peasantry. Some of these taxes were paid by the peasants via the rural elites like the headman or the local chieftain, termed as zamindars by the Mughals. Todarmal who is Akbar's revenue minister, carefully surveyed the crops, that is geld, prices and areas cultivated for a period of 10 years. Based on this data and survey, the tax was fixed on each crop in cash. Every province was divided into revenue circles with its own schedule of revenue rates for the individual crops. The revenue system called Zabt were prevalent in areas where Mughal administrators could survey the land and keep very careful accounts, and this system was not possible in the province like in Gujarat and Bengal because they were at two different corners of the Mughal Empire. In some areas, the zamindars exercised more power. At times, zamindars and peasants of the same caste also allied in rebelling against Mughal authority. Peasant revolt challenged the stability of the Mughal Empire from the end of 17th century. Akbar's policies. The administration which was laid by Akbar had elaborately discussed by Abul Fazl in the book called Akbarnama. The empire was divided into provinces which were called as subas, governed by a subedar who carried out both political and military functions. Every province had a financial officer or diwan. Subedar was supported by other officers such as the military paymaster or the bakshi, the minister in charge of religious and charitable patronage, sadr, military commanders, faujdars, and the town police commander, that is Kotwal, in order to maintain peace and order in the province. Akbar's nobles commanded large armies and had access to large amount of revenue. When they were loyal, the empire functioned efficiently, but by the end of the 17th century, many nobles had independent networks, loyalties to the empire weakened by self-interest. Akbar, when at Fatehpur Sikri during 1570s, started discussion on religion with the ulemas, brahmanas, Jesuit priests, and many more. The discussion took place in the Ibadat Khana. Akbar's interaction with people of different faiths made him realize that religious scholars who emphasized ritual and dogma were often bigots. Their teachings created division and disharmony amongst his subjects. This led Akbar to come to an idea of Sulhul or universal peace. The idea of tolerance did not discriminate between people of different religions in his reign or realm. It always focused on the system of ethics like honesty, justice, peace that was universally applicable. Abul Fazl helped Akbar in framing a vision of governance around this idea of Sulhul. This principle of governance were followed by Jahangir and Shah Jahan as well. The Mughal Empire in the 17th century and after. The administrative and military efficiency led to great economic and commercial prosperity. International travelers described it as the land of wealth. State of poverty also existed side by side with the greatest opulence, inequalities, were glaring. Documents from the 20th year of Shah Jahan's reign show that the highest ranking Mansabdars were only 445 in number out of a total of 8,000, amounts to a mere 5.6% of the total number of Mansabdars. Expenditure benefited the artisans and peasantry who supplied them with goods and produce. The scale of revenue collection left very little for investment in the hands of the primary producer. Poorest lived a hand-to-mouth existence and could not invest in additional resources to increase the productivity. Wealthy peasants and artisanal groups, merchants, bankers, they were always profited. Enormous wealth and resources commanded by Mughal elite made them extremely powerful in the late 17th century. As the authority of the Mughal emperor declined, his servants emerged as powerful center of powers in the regions, constituting new dynasties and holding command of province like Hyderabad and Awadh. They continued to recognize the Mughal emperor in Delhi as their master. By the 18th century, the provinces of empire consolidated their independent political identities. Initially, after the administrative reforms of Akbar, Mughal empire was divided into 12 subas or provinces: Kabul, Lahore, Multan, Delhi, Agra, Awadh, Allahabad, Bihar, Bengal, Malwa, Ajmer and Gujarat. Thank you everyone.